to give us what we need. Hey!
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power! Fight the power!
Memories on corners with the foes and the moles. Walk to the store for the rolls, talking straightforward, y'all. Got uncles that smoking, some put blow up their nose to cope with their lows. The wind is cold and it blows. In they socks and they soles, told in they rolls. Corners leave souls opened and closed, hoping for more with nowhere to go. Rolling in droves, they shoot the wrong way cause they ain't knowing they goes. The streets ain't safe cause they ain't knowing the code. By the foes, I was told either focus or fold. Got cousins with flows, hope they open some doors so we can got clothes and roll in the rolls. Now I roll in.
Welcome to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and we have arrived finally at Friday after another very long and very exhausting week. We've talked here a number of times about, all of the issues that are happening in the country right now, how the news is heavy, how every day is something more unhinged and unbelievable. When we think about our conversations last year going into the election and the sort of emergence of this nearly 1,000-page booklet called Project 2025 and all the things that were in it. I sometimes look back now. There's actually an online tracker of Project 2025. And you all remember that Project 2025 is about, the dismantling or radical reorganization of almost our entire government, from foreign aid to the Department of Education, right, to labor, to the CDC. And so there's this online tracker, right, that shows you how much has been implemented to date. And so I looked earlier today. And it is 47% complete. 47% complete. So nearly halfway done after only 8 months of this administration. And Congress has done their part, right? It's not like it's just happening by itself, right? Like everyone's playing a role in this radical reorganization of our government. So Congress has helped to defund crucial programs, right? The Supreme Court has done their part by giving Trump unprecedented and broad powers, right? The heads of agencies have been doing their work diligently, right, to dismantle the very government agencies that they were confirmed by the United States Senate to lead. And now we find ourselves in a moment where last week's violence has opened up a level of vitriol from those on the right in this country that is extraordinarily dangerous for the whole nation, right? We are watching the silencing of dissent, the demand and expectation that people who hold different views than the current administration not be allowed to express those ideas out loud, right? And if they do, they lose their jobs, like Stephen Colbert, like Matthew Dowd, the commentator from MSNBC, like Karen Attiah, a columnist from the Washington Post, a black woman who lost her job this week as well, if you had not heard. Or you get indefinitely suspended. You get your show indefinitely suspended, right, like Jimmy Kimmel. So it's important that we not see these things in isolation, right, because it wasn't just Stephen Colbert and then we forgot about him, then Matthew Dowd and we forgot about him, right? But these things are connected. So as we're seeing the stifling of public opinion, we are also seeing the right stoke the fires of retribution vengeance, right? Blaming the left and Democrats, right, for violence, and saying things like Stephen Miller, who said that the White House will be using every resource to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy leftist networks. Randy Fine, a member of Congress from Florida, saying that we need to defund and dismantle the big woke institutions that infected so many of our citizens with radical leftist propaganda. Jesse Waters, the Fox News host, who said they are at war with us and we're going to avenge Charlie's death. Trump himself, who said that we have to beat the hell out of the radical left lunatics. Incendiary, some might say inflammatory language, right, on right-wing platforms. Reuters was reporting posts on right-wing platforms saying things like the entire Democratic Party needs to effing hang now, saying it's time for democracy to end, saying the nation is teetering between political rupture and civil war, and posts saying things like this is the Reichstag fire, right? There's a lot of references to terror organizations, to radicals and extremists that must be brought to heel, right, coming from the right now, without, by the way, any evidence of anything that people are saying, although there's lots of digging for, lots of suggestions, right, again, without any evidence, and a lot of rhetoric about what is going to be done to these networks that no one is actually aware that exist in this country. And there's continued sort of reference, right, to this on the right and on these platforms, in this right wing, echo chamber that's out there, about the Reichstag fire, right? And so what is this about? Right? What is that? Right? And because I've seen it so much, I thought, well, let me remind myself of what it is. And some of you may be familiar with this history. But I'm going to read from a book that I've read from on here before called On Tyranny. It's Timothy Snyder's really short little manual, 20 lessons, right, for the 20th century on tyranny. Right? And so it's a little bit of a little fireside chat here. I want to turn to chapter 18. It's titled Be Calm When the Unthinkable Arrives. Right. And so he talks about in this chapter the Reichstag fire. He says the Reichstag fire was the moment when Hitler's government, which came to power mainly through democratic means, became the menacing permanent Nazi regime. It is the architect of terror management. He says on February 23rd, 1933, at about 9 p.m., the building house of the German parliament, the Reichstag, began to burn. Who set the fire to that night in Berlin, we do not know, and it doesn't really matter. He says what matters is that this spectacular act of terror initiated the politics of emergency. He says that Hitler said, this fire is just the beginning. There will be no mercy now. Anyone standing in our way will be cut down. He says that for tyrants, the lesson of the Reichstag fire is that it is the moment of shock that enables an eternity of submission. For us, he says, the lesson is that our natural fear and grief must not enable the destruction of our institutions. Courage does not mean not fearing or not grieving. It does not mean recognizing. It does mean recognizing and resisting terror, resisting terror management right away, immediately, from the moment of the attack, precisely when it seems most difficult to do. He opens the chapter by saying modern-day tyranny is terror management. When the terrorist attack comes, remember that authoritarians exploit such events in order to consolidate power. The sudden disaster that requires the end of checks and balances, the dissolution of opposition parties, the suspension of freedom of expression, the right to a fair trial, and so on, is the oldest trick. He says that, he quotes James Madison. Madison nicely made the point that tyranny arises on some favorable emergency. And we know we've heard all the sort of emergencies that this administration has been, asking for the Supreme Court to make, rulings on emergencies. That going into cities is allegedly because of emergencies. And so, I think I look at this book often because it is lessons and there are things for us to be to help us understand what it is that we are seeing right now. So when we talk about the rise of authoritarianism, this sort of lays out, right, what kind of steps are and what types of things are going to happen that we should be paying attention to. And this is, when we see the kind of language that is coming out of the administration and coming out of the right, and when we see the kinds of suppression, right, the silencing of dissent, right, the sort of violent language about retribution and vengeance, that should all give us real pause, right? We are not in a good place, friends. But what I said last week is that it is up to all of us, right, to determine how the story of America unfolds, right? This is not a movie that we're watching. We all have skin in the game. We all have agency to direct the course of our nation. And so when we come forward, we're going to be joined by my friend and veteran strategist, Karen Finney, who's going to help us break down the news of the week. And then in the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to return to this conversation about freedom of speech, right? Why our First Amendment rights are more in danger right now than we've ever seen them. So stay with us. This is KBLA Talk 1580, and you're listening to the Black Pack.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
As we get older, we may feel strong and healthy, but no matter how healthy you feel, your immune system weakens with age. That's where vaccines come in. Vaccines help train and strengthen your immune response to fight off certain respiratory illnesses. And that's why the CDC recommends eligible adults 50 or older or those with certain health conditions get vaccinated. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Dude, did you order the new iPhone 17 Pro? Got it from Verizon, the best 5G network in America. I've never looked so good.
You look the same.
But with this camera, everything looks better, especially me.
You haven't changed your hair in 15 years. Selfies? Check, please.
New and existing customers can get the new iPhone 17 Pro, designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever, with eligible phone trade-in and unlimited ultimate. Any condition guaranteed. Best 5G source root metrics data, United States, 1H 2025. All rights reserved. Trade-in and additional terms apply for all offers. See Verizon.com for details.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black Narrative Archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community-focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to the Black Pack, and I am joined now by political analyst and strategist Karen Finney. And hi, Karen.
Hey.
How are you?
Oh, happy Friday.
Happy
That's
Friday,
I
guess. We're talking earlier. There's so much going on. I mean, it's like every week. I feel like at the end of every week, I'm like, it was a big week in the news.
Yeah.
But we've seen this, this week we have, I was saying earlier, we've got the, suppression of dissent going on. We've got people being fired from their media jobs. We've got a firestorm around free speech that even some Republicans are, saying, hey, wait a minute, right on. General and broad and very specific censorship. But we also have the Trump administration removing historic artifacts from the national parks. And then we've got a looming government shutdown that it sort of seemed like there might be one, maybe not be one. And then Trump today was like, we might have to close down the government for a minute. Right. We've got all of that, right? So we're 8 months into this, right? I was saying earlier we're 8 months into this, and it looks like Project 2025 is actually halfway done, which, we should note that. But talk to, I also talked about just like the rise in dangerous, vengeful rhetoric, right, that's happening right now, coming both out of the actual Republican Party, but also kind of online platforms where it's really dark, right? Talk a little bit about the rhetoric that we're hearing and what that says about the moment that we're in when we're seeing the silencing of dissent.
Sure. Well, it's very troubling because you had the President of the United States basically say today, which I have to tell you, it just really blew me away, that essentially if it's excessive criticism of him is not free speech. Right. He called it illegal.
Right.
Now, that's just not true.
Right.
Right. And this country was founded on, and we haven't always lived up to it. I always feel like we got to say that.
That's
but
right.
the ideal, the value was free speech, and that we can criticize our government. And yet this president, we've seen him tell journalists that he thinks they're being mean to him, or like he's some child or something, or that he doesn't like their questions. Right. And look, most political figures don't love every question that they're getting from journalists, but the point is that you're accountable to the people. We're accountable to answering questions, and they're not always going to be questions you like. They're not. You may feel that they're unfair. They may not actually be unfair, but that's not a reason to quash that speech.
Right.
And yet that is how this administration seems to be operating.
Well,
so there's that piece that I think is really important.
Yeah, I mean, quash the speech, but also like telling people that saying that he's going to pull the licenses, right, of media outlets. Because they don't report on him the way he wants them to.
Correct. And that's the other piece of it, right? So I think there's two other pieces, right? The other big piece is using the levers of government to try to regulate speech.
Right.
So he says to ABC, I don't like what you're saying about me, but therefore I'm going to, and he said this to Paramount, right? I'm going to use my power to shut down a deal that you're trying to do.
Right.
We've just never seen that to that degree. I am sure there have been administrations where there's some deals going on in the back room, but we have never seen it quite like this.
Right.
And the other piece, right, that I think is happening, and this is kind of where it also kind of goes in a little bit to what we're seeing around the death of Charlie Kirk, which I think we can all agree was horrible.
Right.
But now they're using that to also attack and criticize types of speech.
Right.
So that in essence, it's like we're in an era where there's categories of free speech, and that's not what free speech is.
Right. That's right.
And they're labeling people and comments as, it's a very subjective moment. And you better be careful because they're going to come after you one way or the other if somehow they don't like or approve of what you've said.
Right.
That's a dangerous moment for this country, particularly because, I've been thinking about this a lot this week, in a moment where we're already too much in our information silos. We should want to hear different viewpoints. We should want to hear, and we shouldn't be afraid of ideas. So now we're afraid of ideas.
Right.
And that's the other thread to pull that also connects to, banning books and banning ideas and banning art and banning picture images
and banning history. Right. I mean, I think that I feel like we're in this twilight zone, right, where words that we used to think meant one thing now mean something else, right? And so even in this conversation about free speech and, wanting to engage with different ideas and, being open to, being open to engaging with different ideas and having conversations. This idea of debate me bro culture, right? Where, where it does not feel like an attempt at honest exchange of ideas, right? It is, I'm going to say a thing about you, Black lady, right? That you are not smart, you're in fact dumb, and you're taking the place of white men, right? And that somehow that's a legitimate point to debate. That's not a legitimate point to debate, right? That is
correct.
And I guess that's where things feel like they're just getting off. That we have to somehow, right? Like, people have a right to say that, right? That's what free speech is. We don't like it, people can say it, right? But we also don't have to say that sort of fringe ideology, right? The race science stuff, right, is a legitimate thing to be debating.
And this is the part of what's been happening. It happened during the first term, and it's now happening where they're so pushing the lines and trying to blur the lines around core values, core acceptance. I mean, every day I feel like we have to say, this is not normal.
Right.
This is not the direction that we were going in.
Right.
And it's, my God, the fact that in 2025, I mean, even just, because the other big news this week, we're talking about vaccines.
Right.
Right. And this new vaccine panel under RFK Jr. And we heard testimony from some of the individuals who were at the CDC who said, no, people weren't interested in hearing the science.
Right.
That's terrifying.
Right.
That's just it. So again, it's this idea that ideology and opinion, right, and Donald Trump's opinion and the MAGA opinion, they get to set the terms of debate.
Right.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
To your point. And I think we're in this moment where we have to very clearly try to say where those lines are, that it is out of bounds and not acceptable to say, when I get on a plane and I see that the pilot is black, I get nervous.
Right. Right. I want to know if they're qualified.
That's not okay.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if they're qualified. Right.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Right.
And that was accepted, was supposed to have been accepted a long time ago. And so this is the last thing I'll say, which is it's so clear that this whole thing, 40 years in the making, it's like every grievance you can imagine. It was in Project 2025, and it's being thrust out now as if it were fact, as if it were a norm, and it is not.
Right. Yes, there is this this idea that somehow we have to, and I appreciate you using the terms values, right? Values and principles, right? There is this idea that somehow we have to, it is acceptable, or we should allow, we should, and some of it's like mainstreaming, right? But we should allow everyone to just be racist, right? Just an opinion. What's the big deal? Like, why are you trying to stop me from being racist, right? Like, that's where I feel like we're getting into this. Like, these are not debates. And to your point, like, these are, I think many folks thought that we had gotten to a point where that was not an acceptable, right, form of debate, right? It's actually not okay, right? It's not okay. And we're not going to talk about whether or not it's okay, because it just isn't, right? You don't get to, your opinion on that doesn't get to be the thing that that sort of rules the day, or that we allow to be a part of our collective discourse, right? I do want to get to talking about the removal of Black history artifacts, and I want to talk about this government shutdown. When we come forward, we're going to jump into those items with Karen Finney. This is KBLA. Stay with us.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams is speaking out after a 16-year-old Queens student was arrested after threatening on Instagram to, quote, shoot the school up, end quote.
Heroic officers did an excellent job of immediately responding to the scene, working with the school staff and school safety agents to investigate the tip, find the student, and recover the gun.
Police found a loaded 9mm handgun in his backpack at Benjamin Cardozo High School. House Democrats say they'll back a GOP resolution honoring the late Charlie Kirk, who was shot and killed in Utah last week. The measure condemns political violence and praises Kirk's work for unity, though some Democrats remain critical of his views on race and civil rights. And Dame Dash is suing rapper Cameron for $300 million, accusing him of defamation and interfering with business deals. Dash says Cameron's Instagram post caused emotional and financial harm. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It's a crash in Glendora affecting the 210. This is making your way eastbound just before Lone Hill. That's where the carpool and left lanes have been blocked. Now the highway patrol's running a break, hopefully to clear this crash. But that means they're stopping all lanes, and big delays are loading up all the way out of Pasadena, getting away from the 134. We're heading out to the drive in Elysian Park with a crash 110 northbound before Stadium Way. These guys have been cleared to the right shoulder, but we are seeing some very slow traffic on that 110 northbound all the way from the 105.
Do you really know what's in your tap water? LifeSource believes your water should support your health, not work against it. Upgrade your water with a LifeSource Whole House Water System during September's Double Dip promo. Call 800-WATER-99 or visit LifeSourceWater.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Undefeated USC is ranked at the bottom of this week's top 25 college football rankings. At number 25, the 3-0 Trojans have a very good opportunity to move up in the rankings if they beat Michigan State Saturday night at the Coliseum. 8 p.m. kickoff on Fox. The top HBCU football game tomorrow, Hampton at Howard in D.C. It's the annual battle to determine the real HU. At the moment, it's Hampton. Howard has lost their last 8 games to Hampton. 1 p.m. kickoff tomorrow Pacific time. Tomorrow night at 7 here on KBLA. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for Out of Bounds. 60 minutes of sports chatter with some flavor. Law Murray of The Athletic will be with us to break down what's going on with the Clippers and those salary cap allegations surrounding Kawhi Leonard. You're welcome to join the conversation at 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Here come the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
JP Morgan Chase offers tips for the local business owners in 2025. Small business landscape is ever changing, and the Los Angeles market is no exception. A startup or legacy business, revisiting your mission statement and recalibrating offerings can renew opportunities for growth and innovations. Programs like Chase for Business Coaching for Impact gives entrepreneurs access to expert guidance, helping you streamline operations, strategize your growth, and navigate complex challenges. Businesses with a clear sense of purpose can navigate any challenge effectively, but also build stronger customer loyalty. Visit chase.com/coaching for impact for more information. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are here with Karen Finney, political strategist, breaking down the news of the week. Woo, we could have just broke down the news of the day, though, to be honest, because that would have been already overwhelming. Before we, I do want to talk about this, the removal of artifacts from the national parks. But before we leave this subject of, the capitulation that's happening, throughout the media and the silencing of voices, I do want to talk for a second about Karen Attiah and her being, because I feel like we're going to hear about a lot of big names and Karen's might not be, a household name, but her firing from the Washington Post is important. I mean, and we should note it, right? I was reading earlier from Timothy Snyder's little, pamphlet on tyranny, and I think the very first time I ever mentioned this book on the show was to talk about the very first lesson, right, which is do not obey in advance. And there's been a lot of obeying in advance, right, since January. And we've seen it from our largest media organizations. And so for people who don't know the story of what happened, Karen Attiah, who was a Washington Post columnist, was fired earlier this week for, talking about as you said, we can all agree, the terrible murder, right, of Charlie Kirk. She also, though, was saying, like, we should acknowledge the kinds of words, right, that Charlie Kirk has used, and she quoted him, right, and that the quoting of Charlie Kirk seemed to be a bridge too far for the Washington Post. And I think that Karen might have been one of the last remaining Black journalists in the opinion.
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
She was the last remaining full-time opinion columnist at the Post.
Yeah. And so just talk about that loss of voice, right? That loss of perspective and an opinion, right, from a paper that has, fallen so far.
Right. Well, look, it's a huge loss. Karen Attiah's voice is very important, and it's about having a newspaper that reflects the people that it's supposed to serve. I mean, Washington D.C. is a multicultural city. It is a very black, a lot of Black residents.
Right.
And so
it's still a Black city, to be clear.
It is. Correct. But I'm saying if you no longer have a newspaper that reflects that diversity of thought and of, like, I have no problem saying, hey, we want to have diversity of thought. We should. There's nothing wrong with that. But to say that quoting something that is somehow disrespectful or rude to quote something that Charlie Kirk said is outrageous.
Right.
He said it.
Right.
And by the way, at the same time, they're all praising, so many of his supporters are praising the fact that, okay, he was for free speech and he was for public debate. Well, then by silencing her voice, you're going against what you're saying he stood for.
Right.
Actually.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the part of the conundrum. But, I mean, we are fortunate that we live in a time where her voice will not be silenced.
That's right.
I believe she's already started a Substack, and she's on Blue Sky, and so that we'll still have access to her voice. But it does mean, it means that the Washington Post as a media organization made a choice to take care of a different set of interests than their journalistic responsibilities to the people of Washington, D.C. and to its other readers. That was my read of it. And I think that's part of what we have to, when you talk about the capitulation, I think part of the way we should be thinking about this is they are prioritizing just a different set of things. They're prioritizing business interests over, the journalistic, fourth estate holding power accountable interests.
Right. And so that integrity is less important than maintaining whatever their personal, their institutional priorities are.
That's the signal it sends.
Yeah.
That's the signal it sends, certainly. I mean, it would be very different if, she had written something that was truly offensive or inaccurate, or but that's not what we're talking about here.
Right. And I think that's just true across the board. I mean, I think that what we're seeing is in this idea of silencing truth in many ways, and that's also what we're seeing when we are watching this administration, right, go through our museums, right, go through our national parks, and make determinations about what is acceptable and unacceptable based on their perception of who and what America should be, right? And so we saw this week artifacts being removed from some of our national parks. In particular, there's one photo that I know that everyone has seen. I think the title of it is actually the Scourged Back, but it is a photo of an enslaved man whose back is completely deformed because of the scars on his back that he received from being beaten. That photograph is being removed because it somehow is offensive, right, to the history of the United States of America, and we know that there is a purging, right, that is happening across our government entities like our museums. We're talking about artifacts being removed, about a real clear issue with talking about slavery, right? Like, we're not going to talk about it anymore, right? At the same time, we're seeing the return of Confederate monuments, right? We're seeing the return of.
I was just going to say,
right?
We're going to talk about it the way they want to talk about it,
right? Well, so someone said online, we are erasing the stories of the enslaved and amplifying the stories of the slave holders. And that appears to be what we're doing right now, right?
It does, and what's particularly offensive is that President Trump has said that image, that specific image, was divisive, or it falls into that category. I don't know that he was speaking specifically of that image, but that these images are divisive, which they shouldn't be. They're our history,
right? And
they are part of the American story. They are part of how we got to where we are. And frankly, one of the issues that I've always had with that narrative is, why shouldn't we all be proud of the fact that that is not who we are today in that form, right? I mean, I'm not saying everybody's equal and everything's perfect, but there's a different way to look at that, to say, yes, we had a civil war. It was horrible. Here's what happened, and here's where we've been trying to go ever since. I mean, you can literally, and so again, it goes back to this subjective ideology that decides what's okay, what's not okay, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and whose story gets told, right? So it's to that point. So the story of people who were enslaved in this country, to my mind, that is one of the most American stories that you can tell, because what Black people have been able to accomplish in this country is nothing short of phenomenal.
Right.
The fact that we rose out of, and we're still working on it. I'm not saying it's perfect, and I'm not saying everybody.
Right.
But you know what I mean? But to me, that is a story of resilience. That is a story of loving this country and believing in the ideals and the values and trying to make it live up to those values, and trying to say, we're going to, people have worked hard. They have worked hard for opportunity, to be educated, to live good lives. I mean, to my mind, there is a way to talk about our story, which is the way I talk about it, that is inspiring, even though it's painful. But these are facts that they deem inconvenient, so they don't want to talk about them.
Right.
And frankly, what I don't like about what they're doing is they're signaling to people that there should be shame.
Right.
Because part of the way you reduce shame is to bring it out of the dark.
That's right.
And say, let's talk about this.
Right.
Let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about why that happened. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And so when you
presumably,
say, no,
so that we don't go down that path again. Right. Like understanding it, so that we are clear and free of it, right, and can move on to, as you said, right, the ideals and principles, right, that this country was founded on, although not always, living up to them. These are ideals that people can aspire to. So I want to, when we come forward, I keep saying I want to talk about this looming government shutdown.
Yes, let's do it.
And so we really should talk about that, and we will. When we come forward on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Kieran Finney.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
So many things, big and little, make you uniquely you. Your hobbies, dreams, career, family, and more. Addiction to drugs, including opioids and stimulants, can strip these away from you. Recover your life. Choose treatment for drug addiction and get back to what matters most. Find a provider and proven treatment option that's right for you at ChooseChangeCA.org. Recover you.
September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that hits Black families hardest. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and it's not a normal part of aging. Early signs like repeating questions, missed appointments, even trouble handling bills might seem small, but they matter. The good news? There are treatment options available that may slow AD when diagnosed early. Don't wait. Visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
You don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
We are continuing our conversation with political analyst and strategist Karen Finney. And Karen, I was gonna break down we've talked about all these things in the last several minutes, but I feel like we're actually I'm here with Karen Finney, and we're having a conversation about cancel culture because we can talk about all the things that have been canceled, right? The folks' voices that we've talked about, from Karen Attiah to late night, TV hosts. We've talked about, apparently we're canceling the history of slavery, right? The administration, wants to cancel people like Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, but apparently the prosecutor who's on that case, was unable. We had a whole conversation about that. Was unable to, bring charges against her, and now he might begin canceled himself because he didn't bring the charges that Trump wanted him to bring. All of the things, cancel culture.
Looks like he just stepped down. Actually,
he stepped down. Well, you're breaking news here for me. But that's the kind of. This was the thing that we thought the right hated, right? Didn't we spend the last 4 years talking about cancel culture and how it was bad? And now. Yep. Everyone's being canceled. Lisa Cook, right? The governor on the Fed board, right? A lot of black women being canceled, I think, is a thing to note here. So all of that that we should definitely find time to have a longer conversation about, because there's a very long list of both cancellations and attempted cancellations and those to come. But before us, we have a potential government shutdown. And so, folks might remember that, we had I'm gonna mess this up. Was it in May that we engaged in this sort of very terrible congressional fight over the spending bill, and one passed. House Democrats held the line and said we're not gonna go along with the kinds of cuts to these programs that people, our constituents in our states need. Senate Democrats, some, right, helped to Republicans in the Senate to advance the bill, but it was only going to be to the end of September. So the end of September, next week, I believe, the government runs out of money again. And so the Republicans in the House put forward another spending package to essentially fund the government to the end of the year. The Senate today rejected both the House bill and the Democratic-sponsored alternative to that bill. And so now they've got to come up with something else. Trump, in his press conference today, said, the government might have to stop for a little while, which is just so flippant, right? We mean the government might have to stop. What does that mean, right? Talk to us about that and what is happening over there on the Hill.
So there's a couple of things, and I will say, one of the concerns, and I think given everything we've seen in the last 8 months, it's a legitimate concern, is that if we let the government shut down, that's what Trump wants, and that they will really shut it down, and who knows what will get opened back up. That is a concern. However, the bigger concern in terms of what is in this budget, right? Democrats are trying, it looks like for now, House and Senate Democrats are hanging tough in trying to restore some, specifically targeting health. So we have healthcare subsidies from the Affordable Care Act that 22 million Americans receive. If they do not restore this funding, 22 million Americans will see their health care premiums go crazy, go up quite significantly. And so one of the things that Democrats are trying to fight for is an extension of those premium subsidies. And, the other thing they were trying to fight for is restoring Medicaid funding, because as we know, we're already seeing the impact that is having across the country in a number of hospitals. So I think what you're seeing from a strategic standpoint, I think Democrats are going to try to make this about the American people in terms of spending, in terms of, restoring funding for critical things like healthcare, which, you know, I think we should remind our listeners here, you know, it still happens in this country, but certainly, you know, before the Affordable Care Act passed, I mean, part of the reason healthcare had been such a critical issue for so long, people literally are falling off a cliff when they have major healthcare expenses, right? If you're in the hospital, something happened, you're one catastrophe away from losing everything. And that's a reality for a lot of people. And so when we're talking about our healthcare costs, I mean, we're talking about a really big piece of everyone's personal budget. Mm-hmm. Most people know what they're paying in their health insurance premiums, right? And that is a big part of your budget. Right. You know, everybody has their own, right, budget. And so this is about getting back to having a conversation about lowering costs. Mm-hmm. This is about getting back to having a conversation about how expensive things are, inflation, two issues where Trump has done nothing. It was the number one issue in the election. He has done nothing, and Republicans have been sycophant.
And in fact, made things worse.
Made things worse, and not standing up for even the people who they represent, even the people who elected them.
Right.
With maybe the exception of Lisa Murkowski, who was able to cut some deals
right at the last minute for people in Alaska. Yeah.
So I think it's just important that people understand that, you know, if the government does shut down, you know, the Democrats are trying to, I think, and I applaud this, and I think we should help them stand firm. You know, we have to put our foot down somewhere. Mm-hmm. And this could be a place where, you know, at a bare minimum, can we keep those costs down for those 22 million Americans? Mm-hmm. So I hope they will stand firm. I hope we can, you know, I don't know that it's a battle we can win. Right. You know, they control everything.
Yeah.
But what's been very disappointing is that the Republicans haven't even seemed interested in having a conversation.
Right.
And so, so that says a lot.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see both for the substance and the politics how this plays out, because on the substance, some really important things at stake. Yeah. On the politics, is this a place where we actually see Democrats in the House and Senate hang together?
Yes.
And put their foot down, because that was the problem, right, that we had the last go-around. The House Democrats were firm, and the Senate kind of fell apart.
That's right. All right. Well, we'll see how this plays out. Folks should pay attention to this. And I want to thank you so much for joining, Karen. It's been a rough year. But thank you for joining and at least talking about what, you know, all the things that have happened just in this last week. I appreciate you and your voice that you offer so freely and your brilliance. So thank you for joining us. When we come forward, we're going to come back to this conversation about free speech with Nora Benavides, the Senior Counsel and Director of Digital Justice and Civil Rights at Free Press. Stay with us.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Students at Delta State University in Mississippi held a candlelight vigil for a black man, DeMartravion Trey Reed, whose death has been ruled a suicide. Organizer Jaquan Wallace says it gave classmates a chance to mourn.
I really just want to send this out to his family, letting them know, like, we care.
Reed's family has hired civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, though police say an autopsy found no signs of foul play.